The biggest question heading into the 2023 season, what exactly is the plan for the Rams? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. My name is Travis Rogers. Not only am I your host of Locked On Rams, but I also host the Rams pregame, halftime, and postgame show on their flagship station, ESPN 710, right here in Los Angeles. I've been doing that since the Rams came back to LA 7 seasons ago. Believe it or not, the Rams got 7 seasons in the book since returning to LA. Follow me on Twitter at Travis Rogers. Follow the show on Twitter as well. And of course, we have our Locked On Rams YouTube channel, which is a great way to take in the pod as well. As you may or may not know, we've been taking a little time during the offseason. DeMarco Farr will join me before too long. We get back and running every single day. In the meantime, we're going to have you a few times a week right here on Locked On Rams and talk about everything as we get closer to free agency, as we get closer to the draft. So make sure that you subscribe to our Locked On Rams feed along the way. Here's what we want to talk about on the pod today. What do you want? What do the Rams fans want headed into this season? We'll get into that in just a little bit. Plus, Daniel Jones signs a new deal with the New York Giants, and it is very similar to the deal that Matthew Stafford has with the LA Rams. And I saw some things that made my head, spin around on, well, is Matthew Stafford and Daniel Jones the same sort of quarterback? We'll get to that in a minute. That's just silly. We'll circle back to that before too long. But let's get right into it. Let's talk about this. And I don't know if this has been a question for the Rams since Sean McVay has taken over the team. I think we have a new question in the Sean McVay era. I think we have a new question, certainly in the Sean McVay and Les Snead collaboration, which is, what's the plan? What is the plan for the upcoming season? I think that if you just go back and look at the McVay era since he's been here, it has been very clear what the goal of this team has been every single season. Now, you could make it very obvious. Well, the goal is to win the Super Bowl. Well, sure, that's everybody's goal every single season. But I think the most successful teams and the most successful coaches understand that there are some, preliminary goals along the way, that the Super Bowl championship is probably only a realistic goal for maybe 10 or 12 teams heading in to any real season or any specific season. So going back to that first year, the Rams' goal was, let's see what we have in Sean McVay. Let's see what sort of roster we have, and let's see if Jared Goff can be a franchise quarterback that we can build around and go from there. They answered those questions. Then coming into the second season with Sean McVay is, hey, we won the division in the first year. How far can we go in the playoffs? Can we make a run at this thing? And they were much, much better, and it looked amazing, right? And then there was a little bit of a backslide, which is pretty typical, because after you lost the Super Bowl, it's, well, now can we win the Super Bowl? That was a realistic goal for them. And then, hey, look, we don't have enough with Jared Goff. We have to make a move, but we are doing the last little steps to make sure that we get to a Super Bowl caliber team. And it worked. And it was the goals were for, to kind of put a blunt point on it, were short term. We're going to sacrifice long-term growth. We're going to sacrifice draft picks. We're going to sacrifice maybe some of our depth, maybe some of our financial flexibility for what is going to be available to us now. And it worked, right? They won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago, beating the Cincinnati Bengals, and everybody was happy. Coming into last season, the goal was very clear as well. Run it back. Run it back. All the things that we talked about. Now, it didn't work at all. We know that, right? They finished 5-12 last season, and it was a disaster. What's the goal this year? What is the Rams' goal heading into free agency, heading into the draft, and ultimately heading into training camp in the beginning of the regular season? I don't know. I've been trying to look at the moves that they've made. I've been trying to listen to what the powers that be are saying. And I don't know if there has been a cohesive message on what the goal of the season is. you could make an argument, and you could kind of read the tea leaves, that this is a team that is going to kind of approach this year like last year was the aberration. That last year was, listen, we had injuries everywhere. The offensive line was not just the normal amount of injuries that you're going to get, but an extraordinary amount of injuries, that they were playing guys literally that they were pulling off the street, right? Guys that were in the police academy, guys that had been out of the league for a long time. They were playing guys that they had from the practice squad, everything else. This was not an NFL caliber offensive line for the vast majority of the season. Maybe we just run it back and it's a lot better. Maybe Aaron Donald stays healthy. Maybe Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford and basically everybody else on the team stays healthy. Maybe you get a better performance from Cam Akers over the course of a 17-game season. You could talk yourself into that. And seeing what they've done so far, maybe that's part of the plan. You could also talk yourself into, look, they cut Bobby Wagner. They're going to cut Leonard Floyd or trade him. They're very likely to trade Jalen Ramsey, one of their best defensive players. And it does not seem like they are averse to the idea of collecting draft picks and maybe sending some guys out. That would indicate that you're building for something beyond this year. That would indicate that Sean McVay, who was on the fence about whether or not he was coming back, much more likely to sign up for a rebuild, a long-term stay, if in fact you're saying, listen, I don't want to say you're going to tank, because I don't think they're going to tank, but we are well aware of our limitations heading into the 2023 season, and we are playing the long game at this point. We're playing for 2024 and beyond. We're playing for life after Matthew Stafford. We're playing for life after Aaron Donald. After, Cooper Kupp is still not an old player, but he's not exactly a young player anymore either. That we're getting ready for what's coming next. You look at what they've done, or more importantly, what they have not done. And I think that is a possible reading of the situation. Fact of the matter is, there isn't a clear direction that they're heading in right now. For the first time under Sean McVay, there is some ambiguity. There is some uncertainty. The Matthew Stafford part of this, I think, has a lot to do with it. Is he going to? I know he said he's coming back. I know that he said he's going to be healthy. Okay. But there still seems to be whispers out there that maybe he's not. Maybe they are thinking about doing something else at that position. And maybe not right now, but maybe not next year, or maybe something much sooner than you would have thought at the end of the Super Bowl season, where it felt like you weren't at the beginning of a long run, but maybe you were in the middle of a reasonably long run. I don't know if that's true anymore. What are they doing? I think we'll get a lot better answers to those questions as we go into free agency, as we go into the draft, see how active or lack thereof. Do they collect picks? Do they move up? Do they move back? Do they trade? What do they do? Because right now they're holding their cards pretty close to the vest, and I don't think there's a clear direction as to what this team is. Nobody wants to say the word rebuild. Nobody wants to kind of wink and wave at Caleb Williams over at SC, but that's a very intriguing possibility as well. All right, coming up next, I want to talk about Matthew Stafford and the comparisons I've been hearing to Daniel Jones, who just signed a new contract with the New York Giants. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. But first, let's talk about our pals at FanDuel. The NBA season is fired up. It is cranked up, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet does not win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, it's secure, and it is super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores to threes drained, right? You know that, I'm sure if you are a Locked On Rams fan, there's probably a lot of Laker fans out there, probably a lot of Clipper fans out there as well. So you can bet on all of this stuff at FanDuel. Plus, FanDuel lets you combine your bets for a chance at bigger payout with a same-game parlay. So don't miss the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, so thanks for making Locked On Rams part of your everyday routine, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. My name is Travis Rogers. Make sure you check us out on YouTube as well, our Locked On Rams YouTube channel. We're going to get back to it on a more regular basis before too long. But in the meantime, we're going to have you a few times a week. Let's talk about quarterbacks. Let's talk about the Rams quarterback, Matthew Stafford in particular, in relation to Daniel Jones, who just signed a new deal with the New York Giants. Look, he's getting paid like Matthews. Is he as good as Matthew Stafford? Well, the Giants must think that they're getting ready. Can we stop? Can we please understand how this works? That there are tiers to this stuff, right? And when you are a free agent quarterback, you sign a deal that is about the same as the last guy that did it before you, maybe a little more, maybe slightly less, but you don't get paid relative to where you are in the league, right? Matthew Stafford has been around a long time, put up bananas numbers, won a Super Bowl, and been an integral part of a Super Bowl champion. Daniel Jones just happens to have come around at a time where quarterbacks, not now that they're making a lot of money, but they've always made a lot of money. It's his turn, right? Just like it's Lamar Jackson's turn, just like a couple of years ago, it was Jared Goff's turn and Carson Wentz's turn. It's not a, I think Daniel Jones is about as good as Jimmy Garoppolo, so we're going to pay him like that. Or, he's more of a David Carr start guy, so we're going to pay. It's not how it works. It's who's up next. It's the best job in the world. Because it's just when your turn, and if you are still kind of in the rotation, the way that Daniel Jones is, you get paid. It is not a this guy is as good as that guy sort of situations. There are outliers, of course, that you're going to have Patrick Mahomes is going to set the bar, a million feet in the air because he's Patrick Mahomes, because he goes to the Super Bowl nearly every year, because he's won the Super Bowl a couple of times along the way. But this is hey, it's my turn. Justin Herbert is going to break the bank, and Joe Burrow is going to break the bank. And then the next guy that's going to get drafted, Caleb Williams, when 4 or 5 years after he gets drafted, it'll be his turn to break the bank. This is how it works. It's not my guy is better than your guy, so he gets more. Not at all. That's not how it does. The question I think that's interesting about these quarterbacks is, should you do it that way? Should you do it in I got to pay my guy? Think about the Rams, right? Think about the Rams when Jared Goff was coming up for his 5th year. And they had a decision to make that, do we exercise that 5th-year option? Do we extend him? Do we give him a new deal? These are the questions that basically every team has to ask themselves. I think that what's interesting is just kind of the rudimentary, or not even rudimentary, perfunctory way that they go about doing this, which is, we drafted him, we got to pay him and keep it moving. The Rams did that, and then they did the thing that you typically don't see, which is, we got it wrong. Get him out of here. Let's go with it. He's not good enough. We want to win Super Bowls, and we like Jared, and he's been good for us, but it's not good enough. Next guy up, right? I think that's really interesting. And this is where teams like the Las Vegas Raiders are right now. This is where teams, maybe the San Francisco 49ers are in this boat as well. Do we have our guy or do we not have our guy? Do we have to pay somebody right now just to come in and be a guy already? Or can we go in a different direction and wait and see? Or can we get through a season? Is there a guy on the horizon that we really like? Is there a guy that we think is worth it, that we can get our hands on, but can't get our hands on him right now? These are the decisions that make. Daniel Jones was up, and the Giants had that really tough decision that, is he good enough? The evidence seems to indicate that he's not, right? That he's not terrible. But is he special? I don't think anybody would argue that he is. Is Matthew Stafford special? That was the question that the Rams had to ask themselves. If we go get this guy, can he be the difference between us being a really good team or a special team? Turns out he was the answer. You never know until you bring him in. You have to pay these guys sometimes before it's time to go. But it's not my guy is as good as that guy, therefore he gets that guy's kind of money plus a little bit more because he's up less. It is your turn in line. Being a quarterback is a good job. Daniel Jones, not as good as Matthew Stafford. I think that no one's going to argue otherwise. Now, younger, more athletic, sure. Can you win with him the way that the Rams won with Matthew Stafford? Doesn't feel like it to me. We'll see. That's why they're fun. That's why we do it. That's why we keep turning it on week after week after week. All right, Rams fans, what do you want What do you want to see this team do moving into the next phase of this offseason, free agency, draft, and ultimately the start of the season? That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. Thanks for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Can't wait for the season to get back. I need some games in my life. We got baseball right around the corner. Love the Dodgers. Can't wait to see some Dodger baseball. But the NFL, there's nothing like it. I miss it. I've been missing it from the moment it ended. I know that the 17-game schedule is a little bit like, throw a few more in there. Who knows? We'll see. But it'll be here before we know it. And when it is here, what do you want to see? What are you more interested in? And you can hit us in the comments. You can hit us on our Rams YouTube page, and we'll answer some of these questions and kind of peel the onion on some of this, because I'm genuinely curious what Rams fans are interested in for the 2023 season. That I don't think that there was any interest or any question about what the interest was heading into the season the last 5 or 6 years. It was, let's see how far you can go. Let's see it, damn the torpedoes, damn F them picks, right? Like Les Snead would say over and over again. But let's make a run at this and see how far you can go. Rams had a bad season last year. Rams were 5-12, and it does not appear that they are just a tweak here or there away from getting back to their Super Bowl form. It feels slightly more serious than that. So what do you want? Do you want them to do what they've done previously, which is basically take whatever draft capital it is they have? And keep in mind, they're getting closer to finally having the capital of a typical NFL team. They don't have a first-round pick this year, but they do next year and beyond, right? They have assets that they can move if, in fact, they want to go in this direction, which would be, give me your good player. Here are my draft picks. I'm going to take a chance on a proven NFL commodity. That guy over there can play. He can play on my team. I'm going to take him, and you can go and worry about whether or not that kid from Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, USC is going to turn into a good player or not. I'm not going to do that. And the fun that comes along with that and the possible reward that comes along with that is, we're supposed to win right now. We know what the risk is, right? You know what the risk is, which is what you just watched. You're really thin. And if something happens to the guys that you're giving all the money to, if something happens to the guys that you're really depending on, Cooper Kupp, Matthew Stafford, Aaron Donald, right on down the offensive line, right on down the line, and it doesn't work, a couple of those guys, you don't have anybody there that can backstop them. You have not been developing high-level talents behind these guys. So when the inevitable happens, you slide them right back in. That has not been happening. So is that the plan and the high risk, high reward? Because if you ask yourself, can the Rams win the Super Bowl next year? Sure. Anything is possible. Do you really think it's even remotely likely? No. Right? They're not a Super. Now, it's currently constructed. You run it back, hope you get a look. That's not a Super Bowl team. It's just not. Now, the opposite is patience. The opposite is vision. The opposite is, this is where we're going. This is how we're going to get there, but it's going to take a little bit of time. We're going to have to draft some offensive linemen. We're going to have to maybe start considering who's going to play quarterback at Matthew Stafford. He's older, he's expensive, and maybe that has run his course. As unpopular as it probably would be, do you move on from Aaron Donald? Do you start to decide that while he still has great value, maybe you can use that value to try to restock your cupboard? Now, that means that 5-win season you had last year, you might have another one. You might have another one after that. But now you're moving up in the draft order. You're going to have a chance to take guys. Now, nothing is a sure thing, but some guys are surer things than others. You're going to hear me say this name a lot because I'm a huge fan. It's here. I think it's a perfect fit. I think it would really energize maybe some people in this city that maybe aren't diehard Rams fans, maybe a little casual. They'll root for the Rams. When Caleb Williams puts on a Rams helmet, look out. He's different. He's exciting. He's fun. He's from a university here in Los Angeles, a very popular one with a ton of fans. You would siphon off a chunk of USC. Not that they wouldn't be USC fans, but hey, I'm going to go check out the Rams. Even before maybe I didn't. Maybe I wasn't a Rams fan. Maybe I'm this team or that team. But now that Caleb Williams, I'm going to go do that. Start to develop that. Well, rookie quarterbacks, we know, typically need a little bit of time to figure it out. So now you're looking at, and maybe it's not Caleb Williams. Maybe it's somebody else. But the point being, it takes time. Collect assets, collect pieces. Sean McVay want to stick around for that. Does Sean McVay want to stick around for something he has not had to do in the NFL, which is build something from scratch, right? as great as he was when he first showed up, the pieces were Jared Goff was the first pick overall. Todd Gurley was a high-level player. They went out and got Andrew Whitworth. This was a team that was pretty well, at least the bones of it were decent. Right now, if you had to go into a rebuild mode, I don't know how many decent bones you have right there. Which of those two things would Rams fans want to see? Hit me up in the comments on the YouTube channel, and we will go from there. That's going to do it from this edition of Locked on Rams. Thanks for making us your first listen every single day, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Now make sure that your second listen is Locked on NFL Draft. Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez providing in-depth coverage of the biggest NFL draft prospects, deep dives into the sleepers and hidden gems that can change your favorite NFL franchise. Find the Locked on NFL Draft wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Until next time, whose house? It's Locked on Rams house.